Hello, I'm Riz Khan. Public interest in the whereabouts of the Princess of Wales, Catherine Middleton, had been gathering momentum for months. Social and mainstream media became embroiled in an unending cycle of speculation and increasingly lurid conspiracy theories. Royal bulletins revealing she was recovering from medical treatment failed to calm the situation, and the release of a poorly edited Mother's Day family photograph of the princess with her children only served to fuel the fire, which in turn heated the enthusiasm of armchair detectives in search of an answer. And when that answer came, a little more than 48 hours ago, it was in the form of a video message from the princess herself, where she revealed that she was having preventative chemotherapy treatment after tests found evidence of previous cancer presence. Well, the news made headlines around the world, and some of the conspiracy theorists were silenced by the pleas Princess Catherine made for privacy. The news cycle continues, of course, but in a different direction now, with many questioning their own thoughts and actions as they reflect on truth and trust, fake and fiction in the volatile social media era. To provide context and insight into the story and consider where the royal family goes from here, I'm joined by the former BBC royal editor, Michael Cole, whose career as a reporter and commentator spans more than 60 years. Michael, wonderful to have some time with you again.
Liz, it's a great pleasure, and I'm speaking to you at a very difficult time for the royal family in this country. The King has an undisclosed form of cancer, King Charles III. Catherine, Princess of Wales, likely to be the next Queen Consort, has revealed now in a very moving video message delivered by herself, sitting in a garden with daffodils behind her, a terribly difficult message, a personal message of her own discovery of cancer. Her words were correct, they were the right words, the tone was right, and she delivered them very well indeed, but it cannot disguise the difficulty that the royal family faces at the moment. I think it is not exaggeration to say it is a crisis. Of course, we have to have historical context. There have been worse crises which the royal family has survived. The abdication crisis of December 1936, when King Edward VIII abdicated the throne in order to marry Mrs. Wallis Simpson and leave public life in this country. That was the worst crisis for the royal family of the 20th century, but also the death of the much-loved and much-missed Diana, Princess of Wales, on the 31st.
So, Michael, I wonder then, considering what's been going on, just before we go into a bit more detail on this, considering what's been happening in the recent weeks, has the overall standing and popularity of the British royal family been diminished or boosted by the saga, in your opinion?
It has been boosted in an extraordinary way. People, not only in this country, but around the world, people of goodwill everywhere, have sent their good wishes to the King. I think he was very moved by it. In fact, it was obvious he was brushing away a tear at one moment. The outpouring of love and devotion and good wishes to him. And I think that was one of the factors that decided Kate, Princess of Wales, also to go public with her diagnosis. Of course, there had been this vile trolling. These trolls perhaps will now go back in their holes, saying appalling, vile, unkind, cruel and nasty things about her, completely without foundation. Because I think even these people who misuse their social media, they must have been shocked, because I never knew of anybody suggesting before she made the confirmation that she was suffering from cancer. And it was a great shock, and I hope those people who were speculating go back and look at themselves and consider the wisdom and the justice and the kindness, or lack of it, of their actions. Because everybody, I think, will be sympathetic to any family that has a reverse like this, a terrible medical news like this. But in this case, because of their royal status, because of their special position in the world. It's even worse because they have to live out their own illness in the glare of the spotlight that is never, ever switched off.
Right.
And that is very difficult.
So that's true, actually. And Prince William finds himself in a situation where both his father, as you'd mentioned, and his wife are dealing with cancer. Now, he's effectively estranged from his brother Harry, and he's witnessing a media storm reminiscent of that which surrounded his mother, the late Princess Diana. How do you think Prince William is coping, and those around him are coping with this?
I think Prince William is coping with it very well, but he would be forgiven, Riz, if he didn't ask himself, what else has the world got to throw at me? Because he was only 15 when his mother met her terrible death in Paris. After that, of course, he had to stand tall. He had to help his own younger brother through the ordeal of mourning in public, something that no child should ever, ever have to do. And of course, he then served in the British Armed Forces. He was a helicopter search and rescue pilot for the RAF, and he saw people in extreme circumstances. And then he worked for the East Anglian Air Ambulance, putting his helicopter down next to motorway pileups where there were more dead people than survivors. So he has seen a great deal in life. He may have had a privileged upbringing, but he knows how fragile life can be and how difficult it is for many people. And that began when his mother, Princess Diana, took him and his brother Harry to see homeless people and to make them aware that there was a world outside there where people were struggling.
Right.
And he's always been aware of that. I think he is a very sensitive person. He's a very understanding person. He has his mother's empathy. He's every inch Diana's son. He has that good looks. He has the height. He has the very willing smile. And he has a great empathetic touch with people. And that comes through. And he has not allowed even the terrible setback of his wife's cancer to wipe the smile off his face. He was even joking the other day. He was decorating some biscuits with some children, and he was not making a bit of a mess of it. And he said, my wife is the arty one in our family, which was an allusion to the the changed, doctored, photoshopped photograph that she had put out. So he's obviously standing very tall with his wife at this particular time. Okay. And they've had a terrible, terrible thing to have to do to tell their children that the mother is unwell and is going to be unwell for some considerable time. And
Michael, with King Charles and the Prince and Princess of Wales essentially stepping back from public duties at the moment, and the Duke of Sussex having done so already, who could really step forward and take up the duties of the royals publicly?
It is very difficult, Riz. You're absolutely right, because the king can do less. He's still continuing with his work as best he can, but there are certain things he cannot do, interfacing with many, many people. But he is going to go to the Easter church service, and he is hoping to go to Royal Ascot. And he's continuing to do the work interfacing with the government of the day and the Prime Minister of the day. But it is true that there are fewer people, shall we say, on the quarterdeck. The ship of state is proceeding forward, but there are fewer people governing its progress. Because, as you've said, Prince Harry is in self-imposed exile in California. He was the fifth in line to the throne, and he's playing no part in royal life. And then Prince Andrew, the late Queen's second son, he is hors de combat. He cannot take part in any royal life because of his close and unwise friendship with the late and unlamented Jeffrey Epstein, an American financier who killed himself in a jail cell, being prosecuted for sexual crimes against young children, girls. And so he is not taking part. So who is stepping forward? Well, the Princess Royal, the late Queen's daughter, Princess Anne, she's always played a prominent role, one of the most active members of the royal family. She's stepping up. Also, the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh, Prince Edward and his wife Sophie, they're playing a more prominent role. And also the Duchess of Gloucester, who is a very low-profile member of the royal family, Danish, born in Odense, the city of Hans Christian Andersen. She met the Duke of Gloucester, Richard, at Cambridge University, and they've been together for many years. And she is a great figure of great dignity. But it is no doubt that it's a slimmed down royal family, and everybody's having to pull together. But maybe, and I think the King believes this, the royal family will come out of this stronger than ever before.
Well, Michael, you know, with your in-depth knowledge of how the royal PR machine works, give us an insider's view of the decisions and planning which would have taken place to prepare for Kate's delivery of that intimate message.
What happened when, on a day of great surprises, of great shocks, the King, in January, it was announced, would be going into the London Clinic, the very famous hospital in the centre of London, for treatment for an enlarged prostate. And then on the same day, it was announced that the Princess of Wales actually was already in hospital undergoing treatment for an abdominal condition, undergoing surgery. At that time, there are two press offices, one at Buckingham Palace, where the King is centred, and one at Kensington Palace, where the Prince and Princess of Wales live. And at the beginning, both of those press offices, I think, were performed well above standard. They were very frank, they were very forthcoming, and I think their candor mattered at that particular time. And that went home very, very well indeed. Buckingham Palace has continued to update on the King's progress and keep everybody in touch with what's going on. And that's very important because he's the head of state, he's the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, and he has a very special role in the unwritten constitutional monarchy in which we live.
So you did mention, though, Michael, I know you've spoken about your astonishment at what you consider to have been some catastrophic mistakes made by Catherine and Prince William's PR team in previous weeks. What did they do wrong, in your opinion? And how far would Kate's video go to repairing that damage?
I did, and I've criticized them, and I believe with some justice criticized them, because they were always very slow. In the case of the fake photo fiasco, that should never have been put out. Good staff work would have ensured that photograph would have been interrogated, would have been examined, would have been scrutinized before it was ever released, because it was going to be the most important photograph. The Princess of Wales hadn't been seen in public since she left church at Sandringham, the Norfolk estate of the royal family, on Christmas Day. Since then, she'd been into hospital, had not been filmed going in or coming out, and she hadn't been seen. So this photograph on Mother's Day was going to be the first sight that the world was going to have of her. And they allowed her to put out a photograph which very, very promptly was revealed to have been photoshopped in at least two major ways. In other words, it wasn't a real photograph. It was a confection. It was something that had been altered and had been changed in several ways. Now, that was a big mistake, and it led to major photo agencies around the world banning the photograph, withdrawing it, and warning people not to use it because it was a fake. That was a major...
Yeah, is that hysteria fair? Is that a hysteria fair, Michael? I mean, people mess around with photographs all the time to improve themselves. Is it fair to have kind of fueled that criticism?
I think it was fair in that particular case because it was a very important photograph. Maybe the fact that all this happened at a weekend, it struck me that there was nobody at the wheel, or if they're at the wheel, they were asleep at the wheel, because it should never have happened. I've walked both sides of the PR journalism street, and I would have been hanging my head in shame, because the point of view of having a press relations team, having a press secretary, is to guard the principals from that sort of unnecessary criticism. it should have been stopped before it even happened. You always have to have in any PR office an abominable no man, somebody who'll say, no, this is a bad idea, even if that idea comes from the person who is employing them. Or especially then, you have to help, you have to save people from themselves. Because, okay, certain noses may be put out of joint, but that's better than regretting a bad mistake. And this was a bad mistake because you cannot compromise the truth of a photograph. The result has been that from now on, every photograph or every statement that is issued by the royal family, people, instead of taking it on complete and utter trust, they will look at it and say, is this real?
Yeah.
Can we believe this? And that is, you cannot, truthfulness is absolute. You cannot compromise it.
Do you feel, though, that Princess Catherine really needed to apologize for it?
No, I don't think she needed to apologize. It was a mistake. She took immediately responsibility. She didn't try to blame anybody in the press office. She said, I did it. And I think that was enough. I go along with her apologies. I go along with P.G. Wodehouse, who wrote the Jeeves and Worcester stories. P.G. Wodehouse said, it is a good rule in life never to apologize. The right sort of people do not want apologies, and the wrong sort take mean advantage of them. So I'm with Plum Wodehouse in his view that apologies are not necessarily needed if you're dealing with the right people. And you and I, Riz, and the Princess of Wales, we are the right sort of people.
Well, Michael, thank you. Well, Michael, it's interesting that there is a very different time. You and I talked before the show about how, it's a different era with social media compared with traditional broadcasting. And the British media and royal family have been playing a tit-for-tat game for years in which access to photo ops have been traded for some degree of privacy. We saw that recently with an image of Kate Middleton with her mother appearing in the media around the world. Yet the British mainstream media refrained from publishing it. But social media doesn't abide by those rules and plays a different game in which individuals are reporters, presenters, and editors. So how should royalty deal with such a transformation?
Riz, this goes back absolutely to the 6th of September 1997, because in Westminster Abbey, in the centre of London, Charles Spencer, the Earl of Spencer, stepped up into the pulpit, and with the coffin of his sister Diana in front of him, he delivered a eulogy in which he bitterly criticized the paparazzi who had chased Diana to her terrible death that night. And he said that Diana, the huntress of classical mythology, Diana had become the hunted, not the huntress. And the newspaper editors who were sitting in the congregation in Westminster Abbey that day, they took that on board. It was a bitter criticism of the way the press had behaved towards Diana. In the mainstream press, she had been hounded. And from that moment on, the British media, the British newspapers, made a solemn pact. They didn't have a meeting. It wasn't agreed in that sort of sense, but they all collectively agreed never, ever again to purchase and publish paparazzi photographs. And they didn't do it. And so when a snap was taken of the Princess of Wales being driven in Prince William's car through Windsor Great Park by her mother, coming back from the school run, the British newspapers did not publish it, but they did publish it in America. TMZ, to give it an American pronunciation, the celebrity website, they published it, and it was seen. In a way, it confirmed that the trolls who had been spreading vile and disreputable rumors about, not just about the princess's health, but also about her marriage, they were disproved because there was the photographic evidence that she was up and about and well, apparently well, certainly smiling. And so we've gone through a sea change here because of social media. Social media is unregulated. There is a strong case for doing more to regulate it. But people have a license to say things that Riz, they would never dare say to you.
Right.
This is the medium of the coward, the person who says rude things but will never put their name to it. They hide behind anonymity or made up names. They sit in their little attics or down in their little holes typing away. These keyboard warriors are very unworthy. I have a very simple approach to it all. I never, ever look and never have looked at social media because I might inadvertently pick up something and then perhaps include it in something I've written or indeed in an interview when talking to somebody like you. So I don't want to expose myself to that sort of poison.
Understood.
It's a terrible, terrible thing that, it's a brilliant innovation, social media. It's brilliant, but it's immediately misused by human beings who have got nothing but malice in their heart. And that is the great tragedy of it all. They've taken something which is utterly brilliant and they've turned it into a cross between a septic tank and a piranha pool. That's what they've done.
Well, to your point, Michael, to your point, some of the conspiracy theories surrounding the Princess of Wales' absence from public appearances have ranged from the bizarre to the ludicrous, with death, divorce and body doubles attracting millions of views on TikTok, Instagram and other platforms. Now, some of the authors of such posts have apologized in light of the medical explanation. Do you think that this could actually be a turning point in the way public figures are portrayed on social media, or perhaps just a brief respite before the normal service is resumed?
Riz, I hope it does make people stop and think, because words have power. They can wound. They can do more than that. They can affect people's lives, and they can change people's lives. And I hope that it's a good thing that prominent people who've expressed unhelpful, unkind, uncharitable sentiments using social media, they've now retracted them. And one or two have said, I'll never do that again, please forgive me. And this includes not just people in the media, but also prominent people in show business and films and acting and so on. And I think people have to guard their tongues a little bit more, because words do have power, they do matter. It's the way we communicate with each other. And a little bit more kindness, a little bit more thought, a little bit more fellow feeling would not be out of place. It's a difficult world, we're sharing it together, and it would be a lot more comfortable and an enjoyable experience if, before we say things, we think about the impact they're going to have on somebody, and they're going to go away and perhaps harbor those words for the rest of their lives. Should that be done? Should it not be done? Well, I think we have to be very, very careful, because we don't want to be the cause of suicides, and that does happen. People, particularly young people, take things to heart. We've had cases of children being bullied to death, essentially, by the use of social media.
I wonder, Michael, so actually, again, to this, what you're saying, it times with really what I wanted to ask you next, which was, to what degree was the leader of the Anglican Church, the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Wellby, right with his response to the situation that people are obsessed with conspiracy at the expense of humanity?
It's a good point. I think the problem that arises is that in public life there has to be more candor. It was Hitler who said, if you tell a big enough lie, people will believe it. Abraham Lincoln said, he was rather more charitable, that you couldn't tell a lie to all the people all the time and have it believed. The problem is that there have been cases, and there are cases at the moment. We know that huge resources in Russia are being devoted to spreading misinformation and disinformation to the Western world, endeavoring to undermine our way of life, our elections, and the way we carry on our daily lives. China also is using modern technology, modern information techniques to build what it believes it will be the most important and most powerful nation of the 21st century. And it's using those means to put down other nations while boosting its own image. Well, we have to take that into account. And this accounts, I think, really for people being more suspicious about what they hear and what they're told. Right. And I'm afraid the means of instant communication, social media, it enables people to apparently say things with authority, which are completely untrue. And even if only 5 out of 1,000 people believe, and those 5 people tell what they believe to 5 other people, then you can see where lies are spread. You know, rumor is halfway around the world before truth has got its boots on. That's the problem we have.
Yeah. That's true, yeah. And actually, as someone who shared a time when traditional media was a lot more steadfast, I guess, and we didn't have to contend with social media, I guess we just have to see where it goes from here. Michael Cole, what an absolute pleasure talking with you. Thank you, sir.
My pleasure. Thank you very much, Riz, for asking me.
Cheers.